והבן מלך היה מתגעגע מאוד לראות אותה, ולא יאפשר לו לראותה. The son of the king, right? Remember from last week that the son of the king has been taken by the emperor, right? Who's the father of the king, emperor's daughter, to be able to look over a Medina, to be able to look over a city, and to try to connect and to try to help show him a path to be able to marry her. Now, the emperor didn't really want to follow through anymore with the marriage, but because they made this pact, they have to. And like we spoke about last week, it just is another window into that zivugim really come from Hashem. They're not something natural. Nobody can stop them. It's like the greatest ratzon of Hashem. And Hashem does everything in order to bring those people together, in order to bring that situation together. And so, but in order for him to be able to find her, he needs to be put into a situation that he shows that he deserves her, so to speak. Just like we said last week, that Moshe was first given a flock of sheep to be able to take them care of, in order to see that he'd be able to take care of the Jewish people who are Hashem's flock, right? So on and so forth. So now we see that this boy who's now ahead of a Medina, who's in an office, so to speak, and he is looking at how to take care of the Medina. It was the Ben Melech, he was me'gageh me'od l'ra'otata, right? He hadn't seen her even though he was brought to her Medina. And he was, even though he was, trying to do whatever he could to take care of the Medina, he really was just megageh. He was pining very much to see the woman that he loves, the emperor's daughter. V'loya efshar lorta, but it was impossible for him to see her. Pam echad, one time, halach etzel kotel sha aspaklaria. One time he went near a wall of mirrors. V'artata, and he saw her reflection. V'nafal halashut, and he fell in a state of weakness. Uvata hi ela v'niarutu, and came to him an assistant, a servant, v'siprula, said to him, she'eno etzes shum shidduch mechamat hitkashrut, that he didn't want any shidduch, he didn't want any marriage, he didn't want to be coupled with any other partner except for her, the one in whom he promised to marry. But Marlo said to him, Manaseh, right? So now she's trying to comfort him, and she's telling him, as he awakens, that he doesn't have anything to worry about. She does not going to marry anybody else. She doesn't want anybody else. She only wants him. And that commitment that she made to him, that promise she made to him, is not something temporal or ephemeral. It's something that she is going to hold by, and she's not going to give up on until they get married. V'marla, so he said back to her, Manaseh, what are we going to do? V'aviv eino rotzeh, your father doesn't want us to get married, obviously. He put me in this room, and he's making me do this menial work, and, clearly he doesn't want this to happen. V'amra, she said to him, Afal piken, nevertheless, we're going to get married anyway. Like two lovers that they, young children who fall in love, they cast all obstacles to the side, and they do whatever it takes, even in the face of even parents who don't want this to happen. Achar kach hityatsu, she'anichu lifros atzmam alayam. Afterwards, they put their heads together to figure out what they could do, how they could get married, despite the fact that her father did not want them to get married. And they decided that they were going to sail the sea together. V'sachru lahem svina ufrasu bayam. So they hired a boat, and they sailed the sea. V'alchu alayam, and as they were sailing on the ocean, achar kach ratzu likarev atzmam el hasvar. Afterwards, they desired to get back to the seashore. Uva'al asfar vayash sham ya'ar. And when they got back to the seashore, they ended up by a forest. V'alchu lasham. So they got off the boat and they went into the forest. V'lakcha habat kesar hadaba'at v'natna lo. The daughter of the emperor she took the ring and gave it back to him. V'hi shachva sham, and she fell asleep there. Achar kach ra'a ben melech. Afterwards, the son of the king saw, samuch tamod, as she was about to awaken, as she was about to stand up and get up, that he put it back near her. Didn't say he put it on her hand, it just said he put it back near her. Achar kach amdu, afterwards she stood up, achu el svina, and they went back to the boat. B'toch kach nizkara, within this whole experience, she remembered, shachu tabaat sham, she left the ring there in the forest. She sent the son to go back to get it. He went there, wasn't able to find the place where the ring was. So he went to another place. And he wasn't able to find the ring there either. He's going from place to place to find the ring. Until he becomes totally lost. He doesn't know where he is, even in the forest. And he went around just, bumbling and stumbling, looking for where he was. And afterwards he found a path. And it went towards settled land. He didn't know what to do. So he decided that he went to go work. Also, she went to go look for the ring. She also couldn't find it. She also got lost. She settled herself. She sat down near the ocean. She went to the seashore. She went to these fruit trees. She lay down there. And by day that there were passerbys that would come by the seashore. Perhaps she would be able to find passerbys and captives. And she was able to sustain from the fruit from that tree. And at nighttime she would ascend the tree, in order that she should be protected from wild animals. Okay, good. So this is the actual story. And now we're going to look into what is the deeper meaning of here. You're going to see that there are a lot of parallels that, if they didn't already stand out to you, between this story right now and the story of the lost princess that we spoke about in the past. And Bezrat Hashem, we're going to get there. So let's start with the Ben Melech, the son of the king. He's in this room now. He's trying to take care of the city, trying to prove himself to be able to marry the emperor's daughter. Ben Melech the son of the king was pining very much to be with her. But he couldn't see her. He went to a wall of mirrors, and he saw her. And he fell weak. And she went to try to wake him up. So let's see what the Perush says. Why wasn't he able to see her? Even though that he is pining for her for a very long time. He wants to really be a tzaddik. He wants to be a truly kosher person. However, the emperor still does not want to have them come together. Didn't have the merit to see the pleasantness and the sweetness of holy faith. So even though we are going according to the Perush that the son of the king is the tzaddik, Elyon, this upper tzaddik, this luminary figure that we're trying to connect to and to attach to draw life into ourselves from. And that the emperor's daughter is the tzaddik tachton, the lower tzaddik, the kosher Jew who's for the right reasons trying to connect to that tzaddik, trying to draw close to Hashem, the one who has no light of her own. And through that connection, through that shidduch, that they are able to achieve the purpose of creation and to bring geula. But the perush that the commentary that this writer is bringing is going up more along the lines of the fact that the son represents Torah or das, knowing Hashem, and the daughter represents emunah, faith, believing in Hashem. And like we spoke about in the first chabur together on the Lost Princess, the differentiation and the distinction between those two is that knowing of Hashem is the experience of Him. It's to be able to have an actual apprehension of Him, to be able to have clarity about where Hashem is in one's life, and it comes through the learning of the revealed aspects of Torah. However, the paradox we said is that this knowing of Hashem is always limited because it has to fit into your brain, right? For you to be able to know Hashem, it means that you, in your limited mind, you understand Him. Now, the benefit of this is it brings you tremendous joy. The drawback of this is that Hashem becomes limited through that knowledge. So now, the other aspect, the one that we don't want usually naturally, which is the absence of knowledge, or we're going to call faith, that faith begins where knowledge ends. So even though on the one hand it's painful because we don't know Hashem in the place of faith, on the other hand, faith is unlimited. It doesn't limit Hashem because faith could be anything. You could believe in Hashem to any degree, to any length, and that's actually what we are in this world for, to be able to do that. So in that sense, even though it seems like faith is actually less than knowing Hashem, it's something which is more constricted and more contracted, and in some ways it is. On the other hand, it paradoxically opens up our experience of Hashem to be something which is totally unlimited and unfathomable. And in this way as well, like we have linked up to this story, that in the realm of Torah, in the realm of knowing Hashem, right, we get what we put in. However much effort we put into trying to get closer to Hashem, that's how much we get back, right? It's an equal and opposite reaction, response, that whatever we put in below down here, there's a reciprocal force above, right? And that is all the property of Bina. However, what we learned, and we spoke about this in the first story as well, that through Amunah, through Tefillah, this is the emperor's daughter, right? Faith is, so to speak, not the daughter or the child of Bina. She is the daughter or the child of the king. And in that sense, she has a greater relationship to him, that he has this special affinity towards her. Like in the first story, The Lost Princess, that even though he had 6 sons, it doesn't talk at all about his love for them. It only speaks about his love for his daughter. And the reason is because he has a special place for faith, for simplicity, for tamimut, for peshitut, for the same way that a child naturally believes in their parents. You know, obviously this is not speaking about a situation where they have reason not to believe that, but in a situation in which before anything happens, you see that a child naturally, if you don't mess it up, they have a tremendous amount of simple belief in their parents, that their parents will provide for them, that their parents will be for them when they get home, that their parents will support them in every way possible, that their parents could give them whatever they want, right? So all of that really is a reflection of Amunah, because when Rabbi Nachman's students came to him and said, well, how do we know what Amunah looks like? He said, it's not complicated. Just look at how children are. If you see how children are with their parents, naturally, you'll see what Amunah looks like. Now, the beautiful benefit of this is that in the place of Amunah, it doesn't matter what your merit is. There is no tit for tat. There is no you put in this and you got this. There is no a system of merit. This is something which breaks through the matrix. That through the power of simple faith, through belief without understanding, through a love and conviction in Hashem, which goes beyond reason, which goes beyond boundaries, I am able to actually tap into a higher revelation of Hashem, one in which Hashem has compassion on whoever He wants to, whenever He wants to. And it's not dependent on what you have done in your life or what you deserve. Then through simple faith, I'm able to open up a deeper perception of godliness, that of Hashem's compassion and rachamim. And like I've spoken about in last Chabura of the Lost Princess, that Rav Kivak says that this was Rabbi Nachman's entire novelty that he offers to us. And this he said himself. When Rav Natan said, why is everybody so menaged you? Why is everybody so opposed to you, when in reality it seems like you would be like the Jewish dream, right? You literally just want people to be close to Hashem, and you're giving people every tool possible to be able to achieve that, right? You don't move one iota from the Shulchan Aruch. In fact, you mechazik us, you encourage us to learn it every day be'iyun, right? In depth, and to live with it. So what's the problem? Where do you become a challenge to the normative Jewish world? And Rabbi Nachman said back, because my whole mission is tefillah. What did he mean by that? Rav Kivak says he understood more than anybody that our generation is going to need a merit above merit. We are going to need Hashem's compassion above what we deserve, because this generation will be very far from Hashem, naturally. And so our only ability to be able to break through these challenges and obstacles which are presented in our unique generation before the coming of Mashiach, it will have to not be coming from a lower revelation of Hashem, ones in which maybe past generations were able to rely on, in which their schut of their mitzvot, their schut of their Torah learning, their schut of their devekut with Hashem, their schut of their mitzvot observance would be able to keep them afloat and close to Hashem and to draw blessing into the world. We don't have that. We are so far from Hashem. It's not something that's natural for us even anymore. Speaking to Him feels weird. Learning His Torah feels sometimes like it's archaic, or it doesn't seem connected to my life at all, right? All of these are windows into how far we are from that place in our life, from that place in time. And so we need to be able to draw on a higher revelation of God, the revelation of Mashiach, the revelation of Hashem's rachamim, His compassion, His empathy, which is going beyond merit. And that is elicited through tefillah. And that's why Rabbi Nachman said, my whole mission is tefillah, so that we could be able to reveal Hashem's rachamim, Hashem's compassion. And this really, if you ask any Breslover, right, what is it that made you feel so strong about Rabbi Nachman? What is it that made you feel that this was something transformative? So everyone's going to tell you Hibodedut. Now, what was it in their Hibodedut that made them realize, like, wow, this is the truth. This is something that is unfathomable. This is something that's different. Because every single Breslover who had a breakthrough in their life had it through tefillah. Now, looking back, if you realize at the time that you got your prayers answered in a big way, let's say you had health issues and you had a refuah, you weren't able to conceive with your spouse, and now you were able to have a child. You weren't able to get married, and now you found your zivug. You had tremendous amounts of debt, and somehow miraculously you were able to come out of it. Whatever it was, that firstborn tefillah that you had in your life. So at the time, you feel like you deserve it because you're trying so hard. But as years go by and you're able after that point to really work on yourself, because you realize that Hashem is there, He really loves you, He really cares about you, He wants to be there for you. So you really want to be close to Him now, right? And before you wanted to just out of this kind of deep soul yearning. But when you have some type of taste that Hashem really is there and He's really good, what else would you want to do besides be close to Him? So now you're like trying tooth and nail to do that, to achieve that, right? And Bezrat Hashem, as time goes by, you're able to achieve higher levels of holiness and higher levels of purity, right? More intense Torah learning, more genuine prayer, a higher level of observance of the mitzvot, right? And you'll see that as time goes by, you become more of a mensch. You become a better person. You become more thoughtful and more compassionate. You become more selfless. You become more sensitive to spirituality. You become more sensitive to things which remove you from that space, right? And then when you look back at when you did get your prayer answered, right? When you saw that Hashem did answer you and He helped you, that you were really not deserving then, right? You didn't really have such a merit. You weren't really so holy. You really weren't so pure. You really weren't so caring of others, right? Your motivations were mixed with selfish motives. Your avoda was really lacking tremendously, right? So why did Hashem do that then? Because of compassion, because you elicited Hashem's love, His compassion. It's like the Jews in Mitzrayim, right? Like we're learning now about Parshat Jitro. The Jews finally came out of Mitzrayim and Parshat Bo and Parshat Bashalach, right? The ocean split for them. And it's clear from Chazal, they had no schut. They had no merit. They didn't deserve to get out of there. They were in the 49th gate of Tumah, right? And it said that they cried out to Hashem. So, okay, so you think they deserve it. And on the fact that they were in exile and they were suffering for over 200 years, of course it feels like they deserve it. But on the other hand, it's clear from Chazal, they were completely inculcated in the secular culture. They had totally immersed themselves in the world of Mitzrayim, the world of modernity, the world of just complete physical immersion that is separate and divorced from spirituality. And so they really didn't have any merit. They were dressing like Mitzrayim, like they had haircuts like Mitzrayim, it said. Men were doing women's work, women were doing men's work. Right, it says that the children were being put into very difficult situations, not unlike today, that you see that parents, like spending time with their kids is like, oh, I have to have like a few, I heard Rav Chaim Kramer write about this. You have to have like a few hours of, time with their kids, right? It's like an ancillary obligation, right? I need to go to work and I need to make sure I have some quality time with my kids so that they don't so they feel loved and they don't go off. But as a religious Jew, as a person whose whole life is revolved around your children, so really work is ancillary, right? Work is secondary. My own comforts are secondary, right? So it's like a total role reversal. And I don't mean to be so harsh or critical, but I grew up in that society. I grew up in that world, and it's not coming from people not having good intentions or not being noble. Like literally, the only difference is Torah, right? Rabbi Nachman says in Likutei Moharan, Tinyana, speaking about how the leader of the generation, his whole entire efforts are to give every Jew das, is to give everybody God consciousness. And the reason is because Hashem wants this world to be habited by people. And Rabbi Nachman speaks in a way which seems somewhat harsh, but if you think about it, it makes sense that the only difference between a person who has das and a person who doesn't have das, a person who's connected to Torah, learns it and lives with it and doesn't, he says is the difference between living as a human being and living as a behemoth, living as an animal, right? So why does he speak so critically? Why does he speak so harshly? So think about it. What were you doing before you had Torah in your life? So you were living for yourself, so do animals. You were living from meal to meal, thinking about what you're going to eat all the time, so do animals. You were thinking about self-preservation constantly, so do animals. You were trying to make plays of power in order to be able to make things go your way, so do animals, right? So I'm looking for comfort for myself. That's my sole desire in life. So do animals. There really is no distinction how people eat, right? That I'm eating in a way which is not kosher, and I'm eating in a way which is without kedusha, right? So do animals. And the list goes on and on, okay? So what happens though when I have Torah? So my priorities have changed. I care about things which are bigger than myself. I want to give my children something, not just in theory, but I'm actually making steps constantly every single day. I'm putting myself in positions every day that my children are my number one and only priority, right? The Jewish people, right? I don't just care about my own family. I care about a group of people more than I even care about myself. I put their desires above mine. I am living in connection with a entity above, which is guiding my life. So now all of my actions are not for my sake. My actions are for Hashem, right? I'm doing things specifically as you get further along and you're able to grow in Bezat Hashem, you get to the teachings of Rabbi Nachman, the Baal Shem Tov. So now you are willing to do anything to put Hashem's honor above your own, even if that means getting embarrassed and not responding at all. Doing different things that are continuously mavataling your own ego and sense of separateness, sense of self-isolation, and drawing you close and connecting you to things that are bigger than yourself, right? Bezat Hashem, as time goes on, you are able to even eat in a way that you eat only what you need and you don't eat more than that you eat kosher and you don't eat not kosher, right? All of these different things, Rabbi Nachman said, are really to make you Adam, to make you a person, right? We spoke about in the past class how Rabbi Nachman brings that the word Adam is Aleph, Dalet, Mem, right? Aleph, always in Chassidus and Kabbalah, is the first letter in the Hebrew alphabet. It's silent. It comes from the word aluf, which means to teach or to lead. The gematria of the aleph itself, if you take the different parts of the letter, which is two yuds and the vav, that's gematria 26, which is the gematria of Hashem's name, Yud Kei Vav Kei. If you look at the gematria of the word aleph, if you spell out aleph, it's called milui, it's spelled out, it's in full. So that's aleph, lamed, pei, and aleph is 1, a lamed is 30, a pei is 80, that's 111, 111, all alluding to Hashem's oneness, right? So the aleph is totally bound up with God consciousness. What happens when you don't have that in your life? So that's just dam, it's just blood. So the whole entire difference between being blood, flesh and blood, and being Adam, being conscious, a human being, being elevated, is connection to Torah. So this is what the Torah does for a person. And when we were in Mitzrayim, when you don't have that, so you live just like the Mitzrayim do. And there's so many challenges that come up from that as a result. So much of a loss of identity in who you are, which is the most painful thing in the world. And this is getting to crazy extents now. If we thought that we didn't know who we are. So imagine the younger generation, that they don't even know if they're a man or a woman anymore, right? They don't know if they're both. They don't know if they're neither. They're being encouraged to have an amorphous identity. That's very challenging. I can't even imagine what the ramifications will be 10 years from now from that generation. We're already seeing higher levels of psychological distress, higher levels of suicidal ideation. The list goes on and on. Because when a person doesn't know who they are, they're in exile. The Torah says that that's the most painful, the most challenging experience that a person can have, or a group of people can have. And our generation is actively putting our children in a situation in which they don't have any identity, and they think it's like the greatest mile in the world. And it's really, it's like you couldn't pay more money. You couldn't invest more not to have that happen to your kids. And it's not coming from a bad place either. I come from that society, and literally all of the motivations really are good, right? It does seem like on paper, well, I don't want to put my kids in a box. I don't want to make them feel like they have to be something. I want to get their permission on every choice that they have so that they know that it came from them. I don't want them to feel like they're something that they're not. And in turn, what ends up happening is they have no idea who they are. And the reason is simple, because people don't trust themselves anymore. We don't trust ourselves or feel confident that we're able to give another person the tools to have a good life. We want them to be able to do it on their own. We don't want to impinge, because we don't really have a strong set of beliefs anymore that we can feel comfortable giving over. But as a religious Jew, that's everything you have. You literally have education. You literally have values. You have so much ore to give to your kids that you couldn't feel any better giving your children an even more certain understanding of who they are than we do, right? I have no idea how I got into all of that. Just something that's on my mind. I don't know. I keep hearing stories about things that are going on in the world from people and family members and friends who are struggling tremendously in their homes and with their own psychological health. Such good people, such nice people, such caring people. And they're dealing with things that nobody has to deal with. And we only deal with them because we don't have Torah, because we don't have mitzvot, because we don't have connection to Hashem. I'm talking about it in a real way, not like, dressing black and white and looking religious and acting frum. I'm not talking about any of those things. I'm talking about literally having a connection to a wisdom which is real wisdom, right? It's not just knowledge. It's not like I'm accumulating information. It's knowledge that's good for you. It's knowledge that's good for your family. And so like seeing Jewish people just suffer so much, all for good reasons, really good reasons, and yet it's just bringing them to the worst places. This class should be a merit of shielding and safeguarding for our brothers and sisters in the world. It should help bring Hihorim of Tshuva to every single Jew. I just want to make this point as well. I think it's good to know that Rabbi Nachman has a whole Torah in the Torah, which is amazing. He speaks about us going down to Mitzrayim and going out. And he speaks over there about how it's all bound up with saying Tehillim. So just for, every man and every woman in here, we can all do this. So just to have a greater motivation in doing so. Rabbi Nachman was very insistent that his Hasidim say Tehillim every single day. All Hasidim do. The Baal Shem Tov really accentuated the importance of doing this. Chabadniks are busy with this. All Hasidim are, right? So, but Rabbi Nachman has a Torah in the Quran about it. What does he say over there? He says that pasuk talking about the Jews going down to Mitzrayim, actually the Roshei Tevot of that pasuk, if you look at it, it's Tehillim and Tshuva. Bezrat Hashem, I can look it up after and send it out to the men's and women's group. And he says like this, that for a person who's far from Hashem, it's very hard for them to ever realize that Hashem exists. And we've spoken in the past about elements of that, how there's concealments within concealments. It's really something almost impossible to overcome unless you have tremendous siyata d'shmaya, assistance from above. And Rabbi Nachman says in this lesson that I'm speaking about, 3 elements to that of why it's so difficult. One is, he says that a person needs an arousal to tshuva, right? Everyone who's in this group has had an arousal to tshuva, has had an arousal to converting, right? Where did that arousal come from? It came from above, right? No matter how we look at it, something happened to us that made us want to be close to Hashem, whether it was when we started when we were kids, or it happened in college, or it happened after that. Something aroused us, right? So that's the first step. That is something which doesn't come from us. It comes from above. So you need that. What else do you need besides that? Rabbi Nachman says sometimes a person has an arousal, and when they try to actually get close to Hashem, they come up empty, right? They find that they are not able to have their soul satiated through it. They're not able to experience the realness of it. They're not able to latch onto it. So the reason he says is because every single Jew has his own specific gate of tshuva. And this is related to the 49 gates of tshuva. This is related to the 49 letters of the 12 tribes, right? If you take the 12 tribes of Israel, these are Yaakov's 12 sons. Each of them, if you take all the letters of their names, there's 49 letters there. Rabbi Nachman says those 49 letters are related to each another gate of tshuva. And every single Jew, his soul is attached to and connect to one of those letters more than the other ones. And for them to find their way back to Hashem, they actually need that their own prayers and their own service should be connected to their letter of those 49 letters, their own gate of tshuva. So how do you know which gate that is? Rabbi Nachman says by saying Tehillim. Okay? So saying Tehillim arouses a person, Rabbi Nachman says, to want to do tshuva, and also it helps him to find his gate. Now, if you wouldn't think that that was enough, Rabbi Nachman then adds to it, and he says that on top of all of that, even when you get to your gate of tshuva, sometimes that gate is locked. This is unbelievable. Sometimes that gate is locked. So even you have that arousal, you even arrive at the gate of your soul to enter into a state of devekut and closeness with Hashem, and it's locked. You can't get in. Maybe we're all experiencing that and we didn't even realize that's what that is, right? Rabbi Nachman says that saying Tehillim knocks the gate down. It completely breaks the lock. And you're able to enter in. So we see that there's really 3 levels of trying to get close to Hashem. There is, I need an arousal for it. I need to be able to find my personal gate. And if that gate is closed, I need to be able to break it down. Rabbi Nachman says all of those are in merit of saying Tehillim. That's alluded to by this Roshei Tevot, which is Tehillim and Shuva. That's all connected to it. Says that these are the Shemot, these are the names of the Jews that went down to Mitzrayim. Why these are the names? Because those names are the 12 tribes, the 49 gates, the 49 letters. We go down to the 49 gates of Tumah. We need to be able to go back up through the 49 gates of Tshuva until Shavuot, that we can receive the Torah from Hashem. So that's the 49 letters of these 12 sons' names. We all need to be able to find our personal gate. So with all that being said, that's the reason why it's so difficult for people to actually connect to Hashem. It's not a matter of proving people the existence of God. Even if you did that, right, which already is like is challenging, because you're trying to logically, through the own confinements of the human mind, try to explain something which is infinite, right? It already doesn't make sense. But let's say you're able to have the chut to do that. So even then, that person still needs an arousal from that. And even if he has an arousal from that, he needs to be able to, when he actually pursues it, he doesn't come up empty. And even, let's say he pursues it, and he doesn't come up empty. He finds his gate, but he can't break it down, right? He needs all of that siyata d'shmaya, he needs all of that assistance. Rabbi Nachman says all of that comes from saying Tehillim. So I'm saying all that to say, for you yourself, and all the more so for your family members and friends, that I know each and every one of us as Bali Tshuva and converts has people that we know that are such good people, that we love, that we care about, that we want to help and we don't know how to, that we've spent probably hours trying to speak to them about things that they have no connection to, being in pain, seeing them going through things that they really don't have to, simply because they don't have das. So say Tehillim for them. Have them in mind. Know that these things happen. Turn this Torah into tefillah. Say, I say this before I say Tehillim. I'll say, Hashem, please help that my brother, my parents, my cousins, my friends that I grew up with, my family members, those family members and friends of my students, they all are aroused to do tshuva through my saying Tehillim right now. And that after they're aroused, they're able to find their personal gate of tshuva. And even beyond that, they're able, if it's closed, to knock it down, right? That way I'm turning Torah into tefillah. That way I'm having tremendous kavanah. And when you say things like that before you pray, you're going to see that your tefillah takes a much higher level of intensity and fervor. Because now it's not just, I'm just praying for myself, I'm praying for my own needs, I'm praying for my own challenges, but I'm really connected to something much bigger than myself, something that has really challenged me for a long time. So anyway, just putting all that out there. It's connected to the times. So we see in that case that the sun represents Torah, truth, das, but das sometimes is a barrier, right? Because yes, you need to have das to know, like Rabbi Nachman says, why do you really need das? You need to know what to believe in, right? It's not that the das itself, the knowing of Hashem, is important in and of itself. It's the fact that knowing Hashem allows you to believe in Him. Because ultimately we're trying to go for an unlimited level of consciousness. We're trying to access something deeper, something which has no limits. Through that, we need to believe in Hashem. That's how we elicit Hashem's compassion. But how do I know what to believe in? I need to know Hashem, right? So But we see here that sometimes knowledge of Hashem and belief in Hashem, they get divorced. Just like the son and the daughter, even though they get married, they're always supposed to be together in your life and work in harmony with each other, to work off each other, that your knowledge of Hashem increases your belief in Him, your belief in Him increases your knowledge of Him, but sometimes they get lost. And so to speak, the knowledge of Hashem is yearning to be back with faith, to be back with Amunah. Why is say pa'am echad one time? Shvamim at times mitorer is aroused, this arousal of shidduch. And ayudezeh, these two people, the son and the daughter, they come together, which is to say that there are times, right? In the Torah, it speaks a lot about the et ratzon, that there are specific times in which that a person is aroused to want to be close to Hashem, to want to grow spiritually. Rabbi Nachman says at those times you need to stop everything you're doing and pursue it. The reason isn't just because right? Simply, if I don't do it now, maybe I won't do it later. But it's deeper than that. It's that right now I'm having the arousal because I have a koach right now to do this thing, and I won't have that later because this arousal is coming from Hashem Himself. There's like a special pocket of time right now for me to be able to access a greater level of closeness to Hashem, and that is all being brought to us through this window of arousal that's happening. So, like for instance, there's this story where there was this Breslauer Chassid, and he was in the middle of his workplace. He was at business, he was at work, and there was another Breslauer Chassid who saw him in the shuk. And he saw him that in the middle of work, like during the work day, during the work hours, when everybody was around, this chassid was literally sitting in his workplace, and he was crying hysterically like a baby, praying to Hashem, like out loud, groaning, moaning, really asking Hashem for help in a way which is like totally not normative. And he said to him, why are you doing that? Like, why don't you wait till you're done with work? You know, nope, like the Torah doesn't want us that when we're at work, we're not able to be functional, we're not able to think clearly. You know, if you have a job and you're being paid to do something, right, it's a mitzvah d'oraita to do that job and not do anything else at that time. So you're sitting here crying, yeah, okay, it's very holy, but why don't you just like wait till later to do that? So Rabbi Nachman's student, the Breslauer Chassid, said back to him, because my Rebbe said that as soon as I have a hirhur of tshuva, as soon as I have an arousal to want to speak to Hashem, to want to get closer to Him, I should stop everything that I'm doing and to pursue it, right? And to show you to what extent that meant for this Breslauer Chassid, it meant even in the middle of my workday that I need to make money to support my family, and I am here, and I'm even financially struggling, but I feel right now this arousal, right? So in this case, in our personal lives, don't wait. If you see that like nighttime comes, and all of a sudden you have an arousal, and you had some different plans to hang out with your friends, and you just feel right now like, wow, I want to go talk to Hashem. You know, even though it might not, you know, there's ways to do it, but you need to go pursue that. Right? If during the day as well, same thing. Because this is an et ratzon. This is a time in which Hashem is arousing you to want to be close to Him. And you have a special ability to do it. Within the week, the greatest et ratzon is at the time of Mincha of Shabbos. So if anybody has ever had at that time like a deeper wanting of closeness to Hashem, a deeper feeling, almost a pain of like, I have to go back into the week. Usually we think that that's coming from oh man, I don't want to go back to my life. I don't want to go back to the obligations of my life. I don't want to go back to the challenges of my life, my bills, my children's schools, and like all that stuff. But really, it's because we have a deep yearning for Hashem at that time. And we don't want to leave Him, so to speak. The time of Mincha of Shabbat, the afternoon of Shabbat, that's the time when Moshe Rabbeinu passed away. That's the time when David HaMelech passed away. The reason why that is such a special time is because according to Kabbalah, that's the time in which the Keter of Hashem is revealed in the world. It's only revealed during the afternoon of Shabbos. And they call that in Kabbalah the Et Ratzon. It's a time of Ratzon. This is also alluded to in the sixth Torah Quran, where Rabbi Nachman says famously that when a person is embarrassed and they don't respond, this is a revelation of the Keter. So on paper, it seems like the opposite. I'm getting embarrassed right now. This is painful for me. But if you know, especially Sephardim know this, anytime that a person's like getting embarrassed, or something happens to him that causes him pain from someone else or something else, right? So that's actually an et ratzon. Like if you pray at that time, you'll get answered. Why is that? Because it's somehow related to the keter. It's the et ratzon. It's a time of ratzon. So again, this is all alluding to the fact that there are times for closeness to Hashem. The arousal actually teaches that the main reason people's prayers don't get answered is because they don't know when are the et ratzon. They don't know when are the times of ratzon. And this is where he's encouraging people to learn Kabbalah, because if they're able to know what are the times during the day, during the week, during the month, in which Hashem's ratzon are more easily being able to be accessed, and in which case you will be able to get your prayers answered. But either way, through all of this, we see that there is such a thing as times. There are times of ratzon. And so we see Pa'am Echad, one time he is yearning, right? And he's following through with this. And he sees a mirror, a wall of mirrors. What's the perush here? She'elech liyad kotel mitzufe b'mar gadol. Like it says in Torah Chaf Chay, to explain that there's a kotel of tzeruf. What does that mean? Of the 26 letters of creation. These 26 letters are the name of Hashem. And here it is everything facing. What does that mean? It's explained in the Gemara Masech Brachot Daf Lamed. Shekavana lebeit hamikdash, shemekol mekomot shepavalim kavana. That all the places that you pray, your intention is that you're praying towards the Beit HaMikdash. And the reason for this is the derech is to ascend your prayer from there, because all prayers go up from that place. That is alluded to by Yaakov Avinu, saying this is the Shar Shamayim, this is the gate to heaven. He was in the place of the Har Moriah, where Avraham Avinu did the Akedah with his son. That is the place of the future Beit HaMikdash. Ki Beit HaMikdash matzah nekudat chibur shebein eretz v'shamayim, because that is the place in which heaven and earth are connected. And there is gathered all the tefillot, all the mitzvot, and it makes out of them this tal, this mound. And from there ascends to Shemayim all of a person's prayers, and brings together Hashem and the Shekhinah. And thus it's called the Kotel. Why is it called the Kotel? Because it has Chaf Vav, right? That's 26, that's alluding to Hashem. And then you have Tal, which is a mound, which is the concept of the Shekhinah that is gathered there, all of the tefillot and all of the prayers. And Chaf Vav would be Kudsha Brichu. So you have this mound, or all of the prayers, right? All the prayers alludes to the Shekhinah. And then you have Chaf Vav, that's Gematria 26, that's Yud Kei Vav Kei, that's Hashem. So now between Chaf Vav and Tal, between Hashem and the Shekhinah, that's called Kotel. The Kotel is the place in which heaven and earth connect, where Hashem and the Shekhinah unite. That's the reason why it says that the Kotel Maravi, the western wall, the Shekhinah never leaves that place, because that is actually a pocket of space in the world, which is, so to speak, a portal into Shemayim. That like when you go there, you're actually connected to heaven at the time that you're even down here on earth. And there's nowhere in the world like that. And that's alluded to by the Kotel. That's the reason why it was never destroyed, because there always needs to be a place in which Hashem and the Shekhinah are connected. There always needs to be a place in which heaven and earth are united. And if there's not that, the world can't continue to exist, even that it's just this one little wall. And the whole Beit HaMikdash is going to be rebuilt from that space. Should be soon. What's the inyan of the aspaklaria, this mirror, this looking glass? It's remez to the Malchut herself, because the Malchut is the concept of Levana, it's the concept of the moon. Like we spoke about, that the moon has no light of its own, so too, how does he get to finally see the daughter of the emperor that he yearns for, that he loves, that he wants to be with? He only sees her by looking at a mirror. Why? Because the mirror doesn't have its own countenance. It's a reflection of the person who's looking at it. So too, the Malchut has no countenance of her own. She is a reflection of that which goes into it. Just like the moon doesn't have a light of her own, only reflects the light of the sun. So therefore he only sees her not when he's looking for her, but when he looks in a mirror. So really he's seeing his own reflection. Because what is it in her? What is it about her that he gets to see that allows him to want to be close to her? He sees himself. Right? Rabbi Nachman has a Torah, it's Torah Yud Tet in the Likutei Moharan. Rabbi Nachman says over there, and this is related to the Torah as well, what is it that makes the Tzaddik so cogent that you need to go hear the Torah from his mouth? Right? There's an inyan of going to shiurim, and obviously you can feel the practical difference between hearing a shiur live, being there live, seeing it, hearing it from the teacher's mouth, and then all the more so if you ever have the zchut to go to a real tzaddik of the generation to hear Torah from his mouth, versus hearing a recording, hear it from a friend, reading it in a book. But beyond the practical difference, there is a spiritual difference. And Rabbi Nachman says that spiritual difference is huge. What is that huge spiritual difference? Rabbi Nachman says that every single time that you go a step away from the mouth of the tzaddik who's saying it, you are moving away another level from its source. So it's the tzaddik himself, he says it. His student now says it over. You're now one madrega away from the tzaddik who said it himself. And if you keep hearing it from a person who heard it from a person, it keeps going down level by level by level. And he says, Kol shekin, all the more so in a sefer, in a book in which it's not even said over, it is written down. You're reading it yourself. Okay. So Rabbi Nachman says over there, so what is it about the tzaddik that makes seeing the Torah come out of his mouth so transformative for you? So Rabbi Nachman says over there, because the tzaddik has this unique koach that he has achieved, this unique zchut, where he has turned his face into a mirror. He's turned his face into a looking glass. And therefore, when you go see the tzaddik give over Torah, you literally get to see yourself. And because you finally get to see who you really are, you now both want to be close to Hashem because you see that you are a child of Hashem. And on the other hand, you also see places that you're lacking that you didn't realize that you were lacking, right? Not in ways of I'm personalizing these lackings and I'm making myself feel that they are inherently me. No, that's also part of looking in the mirror. I'm able to see that these aspects of me that I'm struggling with, they're not me. I just have them and I need to work on them, right? I need to remove these barriers, but these barriers are not me. So all of that is the merit of seeing a true mirror. That up until you see the face of the tzaddik, you're not able to see who you really are. Rabbi Nachman brings down that the face of the tzaddik is in his teachings. So that's the reason why when people learn Rabbi Nachman's teachings, one of the most frequently felt experiences is I feel like he's speaking to me. Right? A person might be a business person whose mom is busy working day and night, and he's completely immersed in the world of commerce, in the world of Wall Street, and he reads Rabbi Nachman's teachings and he feels like his mom is talking to him. And then all of a sudden you have another person who's davik to Hashem, he's learning day and night, he's no shaykh at all to the physical world, and he is totally living in an elevated space, and Hashem, he feels that Rabbi Nachman is speaking to him. Another person, he's totally lost. He's not religious at all. He's no connection to Hashem. And he is involved in every single action, circumstance, experience, which would remove him from any closeness to Hashem. And he feels like Rabbi Nachman is speaking just to him. Why does everybody feel like Rabbi Nachman is talking just to them? It's because when you're reading his Torah, you're literally looking at a mirror. So he is talking just to you. He's talking just to you by virtue of the fact that he's turned his face, his countenance, his Torah into a mirror so that you can actually see yourself. And now that you really see yourself, you both have the motivation to want to become that who you really are. And you also have the clarity of mind to know what is not me and what I have brought into me to make me feel like this is a part of me. I'm able to distinguish those things. So I'm able to illuminate the good in me, and I'm able to separate myself from the negativity which I have been given to work on. And so too here, that the king's son, he sees in the mirror the daughter. Why does he see the daughter? He should really see himself. And the answer is it's the same thing. And so too by the Tzaddik Elyon and the Tzaddik Tachton, right? Rabbi Nachman says it's impossible for anybody to actually truly understand the Tzaddik Emet. And he says that this is part of why he's always a very, what's the word? He's a figure which always elicits a lot of controversy. And the reason is, even all the tzaddikim in the past, not just Rabbi Nachman, all the great tzaddikim that ever lived in the time that they lived, they were controversial figures, right? The Rambam, he is for everybody, he's like the most parv tzaddik ever. Someone who everybody holds by. Everybody holds that the Mishnah Torah is like the greatest halachic work ever done. He had a genius in the written and oral Torah that's unparalleled. He had an ability to write, right? His ability to convey certain ideas, and he was a living tzaddik, right? He did things for people that nobody else did. It says on his tomb, there's no Moshe like Moshe since Moshe, because his name was also Moshe ben Maimon. So, but at the same time, when the Rambam actually lived, he was a hugely controversial figure. He essentially made a halachic work and said that if a person learns this, they don't have to learn the oral Torah anymore, because it's all right here. His books were burned when he was alive, right? Now we look back, the Rambam, we learn him in every single yeshiva, even in the most Lithuanian normative yeshivas, they're learning the Rambam cold. It's could be the ikr of what they're doing, right? Like in the world of Brisk. Well, let's say the Ramchal, that everybody learns Mesilat Yesharim, right? This is a person who the Vilna Gaon said he would literally cross through lands on his hands and feet to crawl through the dust, to be able to kiss the feet and sit at the feet of the Vilna Gaon, of the Ramchal. But when the Ramchal was alive, he was very controversial. They also put him into Cherem. They told him he wasn't allowed to write books. He wasn't allowed to teach about many of the things that he was teaching about. He was very controversial in his time. So what is it that makes these tzaddikim so controversial? The reason is, Rabbi Nachman says, because they're not understandable by the human psyche. They have reached a level of spirituality which totally breaks the matrix of this physical world. And so they're not even able to be understood by us. That's the reason why they do things, and it seems like, why are they doing that? That doesn't seem right. That seems weird. Why are they bringing all this attention on themselves? But the reason is because we don't understand them. This is also, the same with Hashem, right? It says that Hashem is the tzaddik of the world. Why does it seem like his experience or his living presence is so divisive amongst humanity? Because nobody can understand him, right? So then Rabbi Nachman says, so how can you possibly understand the tzaddik? How could you understand the tzaddik? He says you can get a glimpse of him through his talmidim, through his chasidim, through his children. Because through his students, you will see a reflection of the teacher itself. And he compares it to a stamp, right? If you have a stamp and you look at it, you'll see the letters are backwards, right? That means, so to speak, you can't understand the stamp. But then when you take the stamp and you put it down on a piece of paper, and you have a stack of papers, so now the stamp, once it gets waxed onto the paper, you see that actually the letters that are embossed on the stamp are reversed on the page. And now that they're reversed, you can actually read them. You can make sense of it. But it's not the stamp itself you're looking at, it's a reflection of the stamp. So this is a very good thing to meditate on, by the way, because it's very deep hasaga. But Rabbi Nachman says this is the same thing by true tzaddikim and their students. You cannot understand Rabbi Nachman in and of himself, but you can understand a glimpse of him. You can understand some level of who he was through his fruit, the children and the students that he gave birth to and continues to give birth to. Right? If you see that whenever you see Breslov Hasidim, they always seem to be very humble. So you can note from this that Rabbi Nachman achieved the epitome of humility. If you see that Rabbi Nachman's students are masters of Emunah. They are people who literally live with faith like you don't see anybody else does in actuality. So you must know that Rabbi Nachman was this archetype of Emunah. He had achieved the highest level of faith. Right? And the list goes on and on. All of these are stamps that have been embossed into the students, and now through the students you can get a reflection and you can know who the tzaddik is. Now, why is Rabbi Nachman saying that? Because a lot of times tzaddikim have huge controversies that are aroused around them, and we're saying that the reason is because they're not understandable. That's the actual reason why there is this big controversy about them. Because people who think that they should understand him because he's just a person, just like them, they come into a intellectual quandary because they're doing things that don't seem normative, but really it's just because it's above their intellect, what they're doing. So then how do you make sure you don't make an error and disconnect yourself from those tzaddikim? You're able to attach even more. How do you make sure that you don't chas v'chalila get into that controversy? Because there's nothing that's more damaging for a person than to be a part of that controversy, like we see with Korach, like we see with King David's enemies, like we see over the course of history, that's the least position you want to be in. So you do it by seeing their students, right? If you see that this tzaddik students are all exemplary, if you see that they're all something very special, they're unbelievable people and genuine people, authentic people that you really believe in, you really connect to, and then you see that their teacher seems to be different, he seems to be unusual, he seems to be weird, he seems to be not normative. So don't be confused. He's just at a much higher level. But all of those things that you see in the students that you resonate with, that you relate to so much, those are actually mere reflections. They're drops in the ocean of the tzaddik himself. Okay, so what does he do? He looks in the mirror, and what happens when he looks in the mirror? He finally gets to see himself, which is really the daughter, right? The one who he marries. And so we see it as well with Rabbi Nachman and Rav Natan, which is the parish that we're going for, because I felt like it was most authentic to what we're trying to accomplish as a chabura, and still fits obviously in line with the text and doesn't deviate from its inner meaning, that Rav Natan reflected the light of Rabbi Nachman, right? When people saw Rav Natan, they saw Rabbeinu. He even had to say, I'm not Rabbi Nachman. Right? And when people came to him for advice, he had to remind them, I'm not Rabbi Nachman. Why were they so confused that they learned by Rabbi Nachman? And when Rabbi Nachman passed away, they literally felt like at times that Rav Natan was teaching, when he was speaking, when he was giving things over to them, when he was encouraging them, when he was strengthening them, they literally felt like Rabbi Nachman was speaking to them. Where did that come from? It came from the fact that Rav Natan turned himself into a mirror. He was literally a reflection of Rabbi Nachman. He had no light of his own. He actively removed his own limited light to receive this much greater light than the one in which he himself possessed. Even though a person might look at Rav Natan and have said, he himself has a tremendous light, and he did. But for him, it was nothing compared to the light of his Rebbe. And so, because he had totally nullified his own ego, he was able to receive this light of the tzaddik, and through that people were able to see the Rebbe through him. Now, so too with us. We are trying to connect to the tzaddik, right? That's the whole month of Shvat, the tzaddik within us, the tzaddik of the generation, Hashem, who's the tzaddik of the world, and we do that by creating a mirror-like effect that we are able to reflect the light of the tzaddik through us. And we do that by attaching ourselves. We do that through hikashrut. We do that through shimush, through service. We do that through self-sacrifice, through mesirat nefesh. All of those things make ourselves into a real keli, a real vessel for that light which we are trying to hold. Just as kind of like a way to understand this as well, Rabbi Nachman speaks in Likutei Moharan, I believe it's Torah Yud Aleph, about these two levels of Asaga Elokut, these two levels of perception of God. The lower level is called Halacha, right, Jewish law, and the higher level is called Kabbalah, Jewish mysticism, the secrets of the Torah. Now Rabbi Nachman explains over there that in reality, they're not two separate entities that are disconnected, even though they seem as far from each other as possible, but they're really two sides of one coin. One of them is a higher revelation of godliness, one of them is a lower revelation, but they're actually not two different entities, they're two ends of a spectrum. And where is this alluded to? Because if you look at the word halacha, it actually is the same gematria as the word kli, right? A vessel. So we see that halacha, what is it a vessel for? It's a vessel for Kabbalah, right? It's a vessel for being able to experience the light of Hashem in a deeper way. If a person does not learn halacha, if he doesn't live with halacha, then no matter how much Kabbalah he learns, he doesn't have a vessel for receiving that light, for understanding that light, right? So to speak, halacha is like a mirror to Kabbalah. Through the vessel of halacha, it's able to receive the light of Kabbalah and shine it out. So for the person who has eyes to see, he can actually see all the secrets of Kabbalah in halacha themselves. That's why Rabbi Nachman says not to move an iota from halacha, because even though Rabbi Nachman was bent on making you experience the secrets of Torah, he understood that there's no way for you to do that without a vessel. And that vessel is the Shulchan Aruch itself. That's what Rabbi Nachman said before he passed away, that a person should learn this every day of his life. This is his main learning seder every day, to learn it be'iyun, to learn it with fervor, and to learn it with in depth in a way that people learn Gemara, because it clarifies who you are, it clarifies your vessels, and it makes you be able to receive this higher perception of God, that of Kabbalah. So that is in a way like Rabbi Nachman and Rav Natan. Rav Natan was like the halacha to Rabbi Nachman's Kabbalah. A lot of people, when they learn the Likutei Moharan, it's too deep for them. It's not that they don't appreciate it, it's not that they don't think that this is unbelievable. They do, but they just feel like the light is too much sometimes. So how do they feel like, oh, where do I feel like I know Rabbi Nachman? In a paradoxical way, it's when they read Rav Natan's works. It's when they read Likutei Halachot. It's when they read Alim Terufa, Rav Natan's letters. It's when they read stories about Rav Natan, when they read Rav Natan's biography through Fire and Water. Like, I've heard so many people who have their connection to Rabbi Nachman and their feeling close to him came from reading Rav Natan's biography, autobiography. Why should that make you feel close to Rabbi Nachman when I learn about Rav Natan? So the reason is because that's the seal, right? He has been sealed from Rabbi Nachman's stamp. So now, even though the stamp is backwards, you can't understand it as it is, through this vessel, which is called Rav Natan, you are able to receive the light in a way which is not just clear, but in a way which is mitzamsemt. It's contracted enough for you to be able to receive at your level. So now you actually relate to it. That's all through Rav Natan, right? So he's like the vessel to being able to experience the light of the Tzaddik Emet. And so too with us and ourselves, in the way that we are trying to connect to Rabbi Nachman, right? We are the vessels, we are the lower hasagas, we are the lower revelations of Hashem, not lower in the sense that we're not as important, right? We're equally important, right? And in our generation, in some ways, it's even more, because our generation is so far from Hashem that the light of the tzaddik is too intense for people to experience. They're so far from it. So all the more so, we need these mirror-like figures in the generation. We need people who are mamish davik to the tzaddik, so that they are able to reflect the light of the tzaddik to everybody in the generation. And in that way, people can receive the light like the light from the moon. That we're in the deepest part of exile, it's the darkest part of night. You can't see the sun, because the sun's too intense right now. But you can see the moon, right? And you can see the stars. So this is what we need to be. We need to be moons for our family. We need to be moons for our friends. We need to be moons for the Jewish people. And in this way, we are so vital. In this way, it's so crucial what we do. Because even though a person might think to themselves, well, I'm like, what am I really doing? If I am, so to speak, removing all of my perceptions of spirituality, or at least I am removing the ones which are getting in the way, and I'm trying to receive ones from a tzaddik who's greater than me, so where am I? And the truth is, you are so necessary, you are so important. People only know Rabbi Nachman through Rav Natan. People only get to know Hashem through tzaddikim. People only get to, non-Jews only get to know Hashem through the Jewish people, right? All of these is the same paradigm of that you can only know something which is that transcendent, which is that great, through the Malchut, through the moon that has no light of its own, through the looking glass, through the mirror. And Bezrat Hashem, with this upcoming week, we are able to meditate on these ideas that we spoke about. And Bezrat Hashem, next week we'll be able to move forward in the story. Does anybody have any questions from what we did today? Questions, comments, statements? Nope. Last chance. Let me see if there's anything written over here in the chat. Nope. Did you guys hear the class? Just so I know. So I have peace of mind for the whole day. You can just give me one of those thumbs up. Oh, great. Wonderful. Oh, Chaya's trying to speak. Why does this keep happening to me? Sorry, Chaya. Okay, go ahead.
Hi. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, my audio wasn't on. My bad. Sorry about that.
Oh, it's okay. I'm sorry, I'm really not articulate at 3 a.m, so forgive me.
I'm with you.
But I was just reading in the Zohar today. I think it's section 11 of Bereshit about the secret of Havdalah, when we put our fingers towards the fire, and that evokes luminaries of fire to take control during the week.
Right.
And it says something about the secret of seeing the back of Hashem, but not the front, and the inner fingers and not the back of the fingers.
Right.
So I'm not really expressing it properly, but it reminded me when you were saying about the sun could be too bright, and sometimes we need we only experience the light of Rabbi Nachman through his students because it's so bright.
Right.
I don't know if I'm explaining it well.
You're explaining it perfect. That's beautiful. That's exactly right. In fact, that the whole concept of the nails, right? According to the Midrash, according to Chazal, when Adam and Chava were first created, their bodies were not as gashmi, they were not as dense, they were not as dark physically. It wasn't as intensely physical. They still had goofs, they still had bodies, but their bodies were like light bodies. What does that mean? It means that their bodies were reflections of what was inside of them. Whereas now, when you look at a person's body, it conceals their light. And it not just conceals their light from others, it conceals our light from ourselves. Which is what is Chassidus trying to do, is trying to allow us to elevate beyond just the mere body, to be able to experience the light which is in the body. Right? And you can actually see this with tzaddikim, that the light actually shines from their face. When you see real tzaddikim, you mamish see a light shine out of their face. Even this generation, if you go to Rav Kivak, you can literally see the light in his face. Sometimes you see pictures of tzaddikim. You see the room is dark, and you see that their face is literally shining. We know that Moshe Rabbeinu's face shone, because they were able to, so to speak, get to this place of their body is no longer a barrier. It's not as dense and coarse as physical as it naturally is. And they're able to shine their light through it. But originally, Adam and Chava, their bodies were pure vessels for revealing their souls. So it was like nails, right? When you look at the nail, you see your body through your nail, right? It's not, even though it is separating you from it, even though, so to speak, it is a goof to your finger, it's a body-like figure to your finger, but in reality, you could see exactly what's going on through it, and in a way which is not so intense, right? So that's ultimately the state that we're trying to get back to. That state of being able to reflect the light of Hashem through our bodies, like the Pasuk says in Eov, I know Hashem from my flesh, right? So that's the way it originally was. That's the way we're trying to get back to. And when we do Havdalah, we're trying to remember about Adam Rishon and Chava before the Chet. We're trying to remember what we looked like prior to, that we looked like our fingernails, that we were able to reflect this unbelievable light through our nail-like bodies. And in this way, we're doing Havdalah, right? That's the whole goal of during the week time, is to continue to make greater and greater steps to elevating one's guf, one's body, to become a keli for the light of their own soul. And this is what Chassidus and Kabbalah are trying to help you do in practical, achievable ways in your life. And in this way, you get to see that, like we've spoken about many times, and this was the real chiddush of the Baal Shem Tov, and it changes everything. That before the Baal Shem Tov, Hashem's outside of me, right? I have to go up to heaven to find Him. And that's really hard. And it's also very overwhelming. Let's say, for instance, you go to a therapist, right? As a secular person, what's the idea? The idea is I'm inherently not well, and I need to achieve something to become well. I need to find something outside of me to bring into me so that I can get healthy, whether it's medicine, whether it's different therapeutic skills, but it's not in me because I'm not well, I'm sick, right? Whereas the Baal Shem Tov came along and said, no, actually it's adrabah, it's the opposite. You are inherently well, and yet the experiences of your life have caused it that you feel not well. And so what's really the difference? It sounds like that might be the same thing, or it's just semantics, but it's really not. It's a whole world of difference. Because if all of a sudden I realize that no matter how much I'm going through, no matter how not well I am, I'm actually naturally well. And it's inside of me. So now it's not like climbing mountains that I've never climbed before. It's about going and digging to find that place inside of me that already exists. And now automatically I feel I can do this, right? So first off, there's a tremendous amount of motivation that comes from that to know, like, for instance, for me, that I spent 20 years seeing therapists, trying to take in different psychological modalities, whether it's cognitive behavioral therapy or psychotherapy, different forms of therapy, to be able to take in skills, thinking to myself, like, I'm a depressed person naturally, right? That's my genetic disposition, that's my emotional affinity, and I need to find a way to be happy. Comes like the Baal Shem Tov Rabbi Nachman says, no, you know why it's so hard for you to find it? Because it's not outside of you. You're already happy. You just don't feel happy, right? Now that's like a whole world of difference. What do you mean? But I'm severely depressed. I'm like always sad, and I'm always struggling with sadness, right? Or let's say I'm always struggling with anger. No, you're not an angry person. You're a peaceful person. You struggle with anger, right? But I never felt like a peaceful person. Okay, so now we're going to give you tools to be able to feel the peace inside of you that's always been there. But you don't need to find peace outside of yourself. You don't need to climb the mountain of peace. It's already there. So this is the great genius of Chassidus, is to point this out and to give us actual tools to be able to experience it. Part of being able to do that is through the teachings of Chassidus and utilizing them. Like whenever you do an eitzah of Rabbi Nachman, you do something that he says, that eitzah is like a mitzvah, right? That's a reflection of the light of the Tzaddik. So when I go do hipodadut, I am engaging in an act which is like a kli to the light of the Tzaddik, right? When I get up for chatzot, I am engaging in an act which is a kli to the light of the Tzaddik. When I talk to my friends in sichot averim, and I encourage them and I empower them, and I try to give them over genuinely my experiences in life, right? That's an eitzah to the Tzaddik. That's like a vessel for receiving his light, which is really the light which is already inside of you. And this is the nails, right? This is all alluded to by the nails when you lift up your fingers. So just think about how much every mitzvah means, by the way. Like if you just think about, that's just a little drop in the ocean of what it is for something that's like a very faint mitzvah. It's like a minhag. It's like a cultural phenomenon that I'm going to lift my fingers up to the light of the Havdalah candle to see that reflection. All the more so, imagine what all the mitzvot really mean, and what they really are, and what type of vessels that they really are. So, very good, Chaya. I actually have the same thing. Usually during these classes, I really feel that I'm not enunciating myself, and I'm not speaking clearly because I'm getting up so early. Sometimes that's actually true, especially in the beginning of the classes. But usually when I go back and listen to it, when I'm reviewing the class to be able to give over my thoughts from the class and to prepare for the next one, it usually sounds better than I thought it did. So that just goes in general for life. So thank you for that, Chaya. Very good observation. Any
Thank
other
you.
statements, comments, questions? Okay. Everybody have an amazing week. Bezrat Hashem, if you live in Israel, tonight I'm going to be giving a Likutei Moharan shiur in Yerushalayim, Bezrat Hashem. If you are a man and you're not able to come to that class, there is a WhatsApp group that Rav Kivak's students put together. It's called Nasa V'Nishma. And Breslov Mashpiyim that Rav Kivak feels good about, which is a huge zchut and an honor, very humbling to be a part of that group, are on that group, and they give only English shiurim. So they're all located in this hub called Nasa V'Nishma. My classes that I started a few weeks ago on the Likutei Moharan, we're actually doing that Torah Yud Tet 19 about the looking glass, about the mirror of the Tzaddik's face, and getting teachings from him and how you achieve that. That's on that group. So for any men who want to hear the audio classes, they're posted there every week. And additionally, I just want to make the announcement that Baruch Hashem, thank God, with the help of the people in this class who are presently here, and the people who are not here that are in our Chabura, and other people who are not even part of the Chabura, who are students of Zion, have really helped contribute to making that trip to America, not just me to get there, but also for those flights to get from state to state. So we're looking really good for it. And I just want to say thank you so much for making this happen. In one ways, it's challenging to always need the financial support of the students in order to make the classes happen. But on the other hand, it makes what's going on more beautiful for me, because it's always a team effort. There really is a symmetry and a harmony between us that, I'm flying and I'm teaching and I'm studying and I'm whatever, but you guys are working really hard, and you're working hard in your lives to bring these things into your life, and you're making steps at your level, and you are using money that you work really hard for to support these causes in ways that are meaningful, in significant ways. And in that way, like these trips to America, or these classes, or any type of advancements we make with the organization, they are not, just my something for me to feel nachat from. There's something for you to feel nachat from. We're doing this together. We really are. That's the only way to do it, and it's a beautiful thing. And so I just want to say thank you so much for you guys, and I hope you guys get to enjoy Bezrat Hashem, the trip that's going to happen in 2 weeks, just as much, if not more, than I do. And to know that I really do appreciate all of your, not just financial support, but more importantly to me, your just support, right? The fact that you feel so strongly about what we're doing and what we're trying to accomplish, both in your personal lives and what you hope to bring open to your friends and family, that means the world to me. I grew up, I always have this experience where people think, because of the way that I speak, that I must feel always really strong about myself, or really good about myself, that I'm able to speak so confidently about whatever it is that I'm saying, or that they think that maybe I have people in my corner who are really believe in me and are always imbuing that belief in me. That really is not necessarily the case on either front. And so I don't take it for granted at all that you guys show me all the time through your words to me, the chizuk that you guys send me personally in the groups. Obviously, the financial contributions are just a window into the belief that you have into what we're doing. It just means the world to me, and I just want to say thank you so much. And I care for you guys. I appreciate you guys. I pray for you guys literally every day. And, I really believe in you, and I believe in what you can do. And I believe there's no limit, and we're just getting started. So, Bezrat Hashem, we should enjoy this whole journey together. Everybody have an amazing week.